And I'm fighting those colonial terms. Ethnicity is another one.
Yes.
Indigenous is another one.
Something actually I wanted to speak to you about. Let's get into the indigenous thing, because you claim that no one is truly indigenous.
Yes. Well, most likely, from a genetics perspective, it's extremely rare and hard. I have not found any population that's truly indigenous, meaning that, they have unique genetic characteristics that no other population has.
Welcome to KU Pulse, the podcast. My name is Margaret Kinsella, and I am your host for today. It's my great pleasure to introduce to you our special guest, Dr. Pierre Zalloua. Dr. Zalloua is a population geneticist, and he's here today to talk to us about his new book, Ancestors. Welcome, Dr. Zalloua.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to start today by just getting you to give us a little bit of your background, speak to us about where you became interested in genetics, your journey here today, and what prompted you to write the book.
Well, my interest in genetics actually peaked very early on in my as I was studying. When I first took genetics in high school, I loved that field, and I thought this is the field I want to be in. But I also I'm a fan of history, and I love history, so I thought one day maybe I can merge the two together, and that's what happened. So over the years, I kept thinking that I could use my knowledge in genetics and my passion for history to actually put them together and see if I can come up with something. And I have, in the past, worked on this scientifically. So my career as a scientist, actually, I've done a lot of population genetics. And when you study populations, you have to study their history, their culture, to understand them more. And this evolved. And then finally, I decided one day that why not put this into a book? And that's what I did.
Okay. Well, you've taken us on quite a journey in the book. So you've gone from the origins in Africa all the way through the entire Levant. Can you tell us why specifically you chose the Levant?
Yes. So most of my work actually on genetics has been done on populations living in the Levant. And the history that I knew about, that I was more passionate about, is the history of the Levant at the same time. So I thought that why not write about that specific topic, which actually is dear to my heart, but also that I'm more versed in. I cannot write about populations that I've not visited, that I don't have a feel for. So I really wanted to put all of this into an area or into a region that I know more about or most about. But in the book, as you mentioned as well, it's not only about the Levant. It uses the Levant as a playing ground to actually get ideas and extrapolate from these ideas into other regions and other populations. And I think that's the message that I wanted to get into, to get people to get from the book.
Right. So it's like the journey to the Levant. So that's like the final destination. Now you have a personal history with this area because it's home to you. Is that correct?
That's right. Well, there are two important stories to tell. First, the Levant. Actually, when people migrated out of Africa, we're talking 50, 60,000 years ago, the first place where they landed is this region. I call it Southwest Asia. So, Arabia and the Levant. And this is where a lot of things happened early on. Agricultural expansions happened from that area, the Fertile Crescent and the Levant. It's placed to many cultures. The early cultures actually were in Mesopotamia, not too far from the Levant, and they expanded into the Levant early on. The Levant is a place to cities that are continuously inhabited since 6 millennia. So really there are many stories that are compelling to actually talk about that happen in the Levant. So that's the first story that I wanted to get people to know. So it's a magnificent place. It's a link between East and West. It's a link between even, if we expand it a little bit, because I talk about Southwest Asia, so the entire region. So it's actually a link between East and West. It's a link between Africa, and Asia. It's a cultural hub, I call it.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And the second, yes, it's a personal story because that's where I'm from. And I wanted to also weed into my personal experience as a geneticist and as a person who understands the culture, or I pretend or not pretend, I feel like I understand the culture.
Of course you
Yes.
do. It's your culture.
Yes, it's my culture. So really to share it with the world and to say, it's not one culture, as I say, there are thousands of cultures that I wanted to shed some light on for people to know about.
One of the things that struck me most going through the book is how you question that DNA makes us who we are.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes. Over the last 15 years or so, people started to understand what DNA can and cannot do. And some of the aspects that actually people, jumped into very quickly is that DNA tells you about your ancestry. Yes, it's true. DNA tells you about ancestry, but what does that really mean? It means about, yes, we now know that we all came out of Africa, and then we know we can actually trace back our migration patterns through DNA. But does it really tell us who we are? And that's something that really, I would say I struggled with as a geneticist and as a person who understands population genetics. So people started to push this idea that, by doing a DNA test, I can tell you who you are, where you come from, and
That's it.
Yes, and that's it. And that was, I think, that was totally wrong in my opinion. And that's why I really wanted to show people that it's not all about DNA.
Right.
And coming from a geneticist, I think also it emphasizes the point even more. Yes, DNA tells you a story of your ancestors, but it doesn't tell you the story about their culture. It doesn't tell you a story about who you really are and who they really are. So really, it's one part. It's a small part of your ancestry, of your heritage, which I think you should embrace. But it's not everything about you and about your culture and about your ancestors. So we should not conflate, just a DNA test with identities in general and cultures and all of these people that moved and went back and forth, because at the end of the day, we mix, and we mix more than we think we mix, and so that's what I wanted to state that. So as I always say, you make your own identity. You should understand your heritage. You should know about your heritage, and you should cherish your heritage. But roots, yes, you are born in one place, but you move, and with you a lot of memories move. But you make more memories as you travel, as you meet more people. So it will change you. So we cannot say because your DNA states that I can trace you back to, let's say, a certain origin or a certain place. It doesn't mean that you have to adopt and accept that you can only be from that place.
That's a fair point. And we live in a place that's quite transient. My children were born here, for example, but are they from here? So their history, their ethnicity goes. It's an interesting word because I know you challenged that term. They're born here, but I'm born in Ireland. Their father is Canadian. They have a Canadian passport. So it's confusing for them. Where am I from?
Yes. And don't expect somebody like me to tell you where you're from, me as a geneticist. I think you should be able to tell people what you feel that you belong to. Some people, if you take twins, right? And let's take the case of identical twins, and they were born in a place. Let's say they're born in Michigan, but then they were separated at birth. One is living in the Netherlands, and another one is living in Australia. And let's say they never knew where they come from. So what would they feel? So really, this is a simplified answer, but actually, this is the story that I want to say.
So the environment plays a really
But
rich part.
not only the environment and the interactions. It's all these interactions that you have with people and your environment. So when when you're born, the first few weeks of life, it's the mother that actually you're gonna connect with, and then a bit more you just connect with the entire family. So really, your identity is revolves around your family, and then as you grow older, then you become it's the community, and then your region and your country. But then as you move, you know you may decide that I want now to be part of a different culture, and that's fine. I mean, DNA should not dictate what you can and what you cannot say, or what you feel and what you cannot feel.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm really trying to push, is that not push, that's what I'm trying to actually tell
Express,
or
yeah.
or explain, that DNA is important. DNA will tell you about certain aspects of your ancestry, but it should not hijack your identity
Right.
and how you feel about your identity.
So there's a not uncommon phrase that people use sometimes, like, it's in our DNA.
Yeah.
I like or don't like something, some kind of food. It's in my DNA. It's a very loose expression, isn't it?
Yes.
Based on what you're saying.
Yes, and I can say exactly the same. Yes, some of it
Mm.
has to do with DNA, but a lot of it has to do with culture and the way you were brought up, and for example, whether you like certain type of food or not. It's not only DNA. DNA may play a role in it. Some people actually, there's a gene actually, in fact, that if you have a mutation in that particular gene, you tend to hate green vegetables. You tend to hate broccoli and Brussels sprouts, etc. That's because there's a gene in the body. But then you can actually get accustomed to it and accustomed to eating different food, etc. So it's really not only about DNA. It may be a small fraction is about DNA, but the rest is not.
So it's often about exposure.
Exposure, how early it is,
Yeah.
and different exposures, absolutely.
Okay. So one thing that struck me most, actually, I found it to be one of the most impactful things as I was reading your pages, is your use of language and how you use terminology to question what identity means. For example, and I'll let you expand on this. The one that struck me most was the use of the word minority.
Yeah.
And you said,
I don't like that word.
I know you don't like that word. You said in the book, how can we actually truly have community with the word minority when you're describing people that way? Because it does have a bit of a negative connotation to it these
That's
days.
precisely why I don't like that word, is because the way it was introduced to our lexicon was introduced as a derogative term, or as a term that to describe minority as like somebody or a group of people who are a minority, and it's really, I think, when you talk about people, when you talk about culture, can you talk about a culture of minority? Well, a culture is a culture, and I think the world is better off if we have as many cultures as possible. I mean, imagine a world as a monoculture, which is the world we're driving today. Yes, we're driving a culture of, I mean, if you look at where the world is going right now with AI and all of this, I mean, we're really moving into monoculturalism a lot faster than what I'm hoping for. I think we need to preserve cultures, and the way to preserve cultures is not to call them minority cultures. I think every culture can actually give a lot to humanity, and that's why I despise the word minority. Maybe if it was used as in a different context from the start, maybe it would make a difference. But now it's too late. It's too late to talk about minority in a positive sense.
It's evolved.
Yes, it's evolved, and that's why I struggle with that word, and I think cultures should be given their proper weight, whether they are a small culture or a large culture. In fact, the way cultures evolve, we evolve from really small cultures, and these cultures, they actually either expand, they morph into other cultures when they mix. So really, it's an organic process, and we cannot say there is a minority side of this organic process of culturalism. So this is what I try to say in the book is we need to preserve culture, we need to preserve languages. You know how many languages we lost? We lost thousands, tens of thousands of languages. They were lost, because we don't use them anymore, and because
sometimes they're suppressed by
yes,
authoritarianism.
exactly. So either suppressed or because we just we adopt now English.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
But we need to preserve those. At the end, this is a culture that is lost. And a lost culture is something that we cannot retrieve back, and it's a loss to, it's sad, it's a loss to humanity. So really, the term minority for me, from when I was first exposed to it really didn't sound right to me. So you cannot. So let's say you have a population living in one region, and then other people moved into that region, which happens all the time, and then you have now the newcomers they become larger numbers. So how do we label this? So the initial people who lived there are now, the X majority, and now the newcomers are the majority or the minority. So you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So let's not use those terms.
But why do we have to label it at all?
Well, because some people,
Some people need that.
and again, that's, we don't want to talk about, about the Western dominance, and colonialism, but all of these terms are colonial terms.
Yeah.
And I'm fighting those colonial terms. Ethnicity is another one.
Yes.
Indigenous is another one.
Yeah. This is something actually I wanted to speak to you about. Let's get into the indigenous thing, because you claim that no one is truly indigenous.
Yes. Well, most likely, from a genetics perspective, it's extremely rare and hard. I have not found any population that's truly indigenous, meaning that, they have unique genetic characteristics that no other population has. We went, and I talk about this in the book, we went to Africa, to Chad, and we went to a place where it took us 3 days to get there in 4x4s, really in the middle of nowhere, no roads. And we got to a very small place where you have like 6 or 7 tents. I think it was 14 males in the entire community, maybe about 50 or so people. We tested those people. They speak a language called the Lal language, that, they click of the tongue.
Yeah.
Really fascinating language. So, the closest, town is really 200, 300 miles away, and no roads, etc. So we expected to see, this is an indigenous population.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's not by a long shot. So they were mixed, and they had European
in their
ancestry, in their DNA. So really, the term indigenous, really, it's another colonial term that I struggle with, and it's a designation of people, and I think, we should not really use like this, first inhabitants of that regions. Let's start thinking about these things, and these are the messages that I talk about in the book.
It's nice. You've crossed so many lines.
Yeah, because when I first started studying population genetics, I was involved in this large project with National Geographic, and since I was in the Levant, they asked me to recruit indigenous people from the Levant. And that was the first time that actually, I thought about indigenous people of the Levant.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? Why are we saying that? So everybody who lives around me is indigenous. That's how I started thinking about in this indigeneity concept, and how it doesn't make sense at all.
So we need to think about what we're saying. We need to think about the language we use.
Yes. And I take a great length to explain this.
Yes, you do. But it's good, because it actually made me think about it in a different way. It helped me to sort of be aware and question things. Even like I use the word indigenous. Yeah. When I think about, I'm from Canada, and it's a melting pot of cultures there. Their identity is that they're a multicultural nation. So their multiculturalism is the Canadian identity, really. People say, what are Canadians? I'm like, they're everywhere. They're everyone. But But the term indigenous would refer to the native Indians who were there before.
The Indians. We even
Another term we don't use anymore.
Well, I mean, we call them Indians. I mean, this was because, when Christopher Columbus they thought they came to India, and they called them Indians.
Yeah.
Imagine that, and they stuck to us until
Exactly.
the last 20 years, I think, because now we want to use politically correct words. We don't use Indian, but let's go to the root cause of it and explain why we call them Indians and why we should not call them Indians, not because the term is not politically correct, but because truly
it's actually
wrong.
inaccurate.
It's inaccurate, exactly.
Exactly. So we've talked about how layered that identity is. I've been on to the 23andMe website, and I've actually seen and I'm quoting here, know your personal story in a whole new way. What's the danger in these kinds of tests now that people are relating identity to?
Well, I think they exploited a void in people. Instead of really telling people how they should think about their identity, they took the easy way out and they say, hey, we'll give you a DNA test. Simple, we'll tell you where you're from. And I think that's the void that 23andMe and the likes of 23andMe filled initially. And I think a lot of geneticists actually, they didn't realize what was going on until it was too late. And I think we need now to educate people again that the DNA is only a DNA test. It is part of it. It's a small part of your identity, and you should really learn to embrace your identity in a different manner. I mean, I cannot tell people what to say about themselves, but at least I can state the facts that DNA will only tell you, a sliver. Yes, it's good. It tells you a path, an ancestry. Whether you want to, take this as your identity, it's your own call. But I'm trying to say is there are many other layers to identity that are not explained by DNA, and in my opinion, should not be explained by DNA.
Exactly. You should send them a couple of boxes of your books.
Yeah.
Say, please send these out to your next 20 purchasers. Can you share an example with us, perhaps from your research in the Levant, where DNA showed one thing, but when culture and environment were introduced, it was actually something slightly different?
Yes, I can share a lot of examples.
Give us some anecdotes.
Well, yes. I mean, there's the, people move, and they moved for a very long time. I mean, since the Levant has been inhabited for at least continuously for maybe 16,000 years. It was inhabited before, but then because of the Ice Age, people actually had to migrate out. Yeah, because the Levant was not always, the climate was not always as is today. Arabia, for example, in the last 7,000 years, when really a lot of people came to Arabia to populate Arabia because of the climate as well. People lived here before, and etc. So a few example of this. You get people to say, my ancestry, I have anecdotal stories that my parents tell me that I came from this region. And when I was living in Lebanon, people would tell me that my ancestry is from, Jordan. We came, around 1,000 years to Jordan, from Jordan to Lebanon, etc. When I do a DNA test, I show that, well, maybe, but the DNA doesn't show that there's a link that's coming from Jordan to Lebanon. But I think you were here since 6,000 years.
Right.
And they get really frustrated initially because that's the story that they've been told. And they realize that, well, maybe there's
holes in that story.
Holes in there, and they start questioning. And actually, some people, come to realize that yes, these stories make more sense to them when I tell them, because, and that's where DNA is good for. It's like to say if certain anecdotal stories can be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one example. And another example is that I had people who are convinced that they've been living in that town for really thousands of years. And we did the DNA test, and it was clearly showing that they had very close, group living thousands of miles away in a different country. And then when we did additional analysis, we realized that actually these people who live in this town, they come from there. And then
So they migrated it.
yes, and when they dug back into the history of their family, they realized that indeed that actually they came only 200 years into this. So sometimes people get surprised. Sometimes people get angry.
I can understand it. I mean, if we're speaking about identity, and you've thought that way of yourself
Right.
for your entire life,
Right.
and suddenly someone saying, actually, that's not the case.
That's precisely,
It makes you question, well, who am I now?
that's precisely the point why I think DNA should not be used as the main, conduit for who you are and how you.
Well, you make an excellent point.
Yes, how you make yourself. I mean, how you see yourself, and I think that's what matters the most, in my opinion.
Before we sign off today, I wanted to read an excerpt from the book that I feel kind of wraps everything up in a nice little bow. If I've chosen the correct one, you tell me. DNA does not define or determine an identity, a culture, or an ethnicity. It uncovers stories from the past, but does not reveal who we really are. Identity is a rich and complex concept. It is the origin, the birthplace, and the early interactions. It is the lifetime experience. Identity is a personal and unique identifier. Identity is yours to make. Cherish it, be proud of it, and don't be shy about sharing it with the world.
That's the message. You got it right, and that's exactly why I wrote the book.
Okay.
It's just to state this, and all what I've written before what you read is to convince the reader that this is what this book is all about. And I put enough emphasis and enough science in a way to just have people feel that what you just read.
Yeah, when there's enough science, there's an accuracy to it. There's an impression of this is factual and thought-provoking, and I've taken a lot away from it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And you mentioned something important. It's not a given to write a book, especially about a topic that I did a lot of science on.
Yeah.
So it was not easy to actually make this shift from science writing into this type of writing.
I can imagine.
And make them and get the message across.
Yeah, and you've woven it very well. And as I was reading it, I thought the same. I thought this must have been very difficult to write.
Well, I hope people get the message.
But you did very well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For having me.
Can you just quickly tell the audience where we can find a copy of the book?
Yeah, the book is available everywhere. It's published by Random House, Penguin Random House, and it's on Amazon or any major bookstore.
Okay. Well, thank you for being with us today. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. My pleasure is mine. Thank you so much.
If you or anyone you know in the fields of STEM are conducting groundbreaking research that's contributing to the overall impact of the UAE, please reach out to us at ku.ac.ae/KU Pulse.